Hey there, I'm Dr. Kate Richards, and in this video I'll be discussing my latest blog article, which is entitled, Are You Sick or Just Thirsty? I'll be discussing ways to help you feel your best in addition to my article. So, how much water do women really need to drink each day? I don't want to minimize the myriad of very real health challenges many women live with. However, I do want to bring attention to the reality that most of us don't drink enough water. Wah, wah. It's making us feel sick. Don't worry, this isn't an article that's going to shame you for your lack of this essential substance. What I am going to do is share more on the topic of how the unfortunate situation of dehydration that many of us find ourselves in could absolutely be the cause of many of the day-to-day discomforts that we all just live with. So hydration is a tough one because there are so many other things we can choose to drink besides water. But water is the only one of those choices that our body actually wants and needs. What happens is, over time we sort of become accustomed to a certain level of dehydration. That's why when ominous health signs and symptoms creep up, we often don't relate it to our inadequate water intake. Our body just does its best to function at full capacity, even when its basic needs aren't being met. Sounds like classic relationship issues, right? Well, it kind of is. But let's consider this houseplant scenario instead. So, over time, our body tissues start to dry out like the soil of a parched houseplant. Have you ever tried to water a houseplant that's been over-neglected? What happens? The water just runs down the sides and right out the bottom. Hardly anything was absorbed. Well, our body tissues are like that in a way. That's why when you try to increase your water intake, you may feel like you have to pee constantly. Then you're like, well, if this is how it's going to be, it's definitely not going to work. I get it. It's inconvenient when we're in the middle of all the amazing stuff we do. The good news is, like any great relationship, once you get over the initial runoff stage, things start to shift big time. It's like the houseplant that soil finally gets saturated and the leaves start looking all lustrous and perky. So don't worry, because generally the need to frequently urinate becomes less and less over time. When your body and organ tissues are slowly quenched of thirst, there can be very noticeable positive side effects too. I'm sure most of us would say yes to more energy, improved sleep, better memory, clearer thinking, smoother and plumper skin, hair that shines, muscles and joints that recover much quicker from exercise and they ache less. And one of the biggest benefits that I haven't even mentioned yet, we'd like to have more balanced hormones. All of the goodness that comes from that is just immense, right? So let's go into that last positive side effect a little more, because as we know, hormonal balance is so dang important for us lady folk. I recently read an article called What Every Woman Needs to Know About Hydration by Brene Browdy. The author points out that many of the standard recommendations for water intake are designed, who do you think they're designed for? You got it, men! Hydration isn't as simple as just adding water. In fact, women have a special set of requirements. Stacy Sims, PhD, states that women are not small men. And that's an essential observation because our unique physiology means our water requirements are different than a man's. And if we drink water according to common standards, we may be functioning at less than our optimum performance. So this primarily has to do with blood volume. Water maintains blood circulatory pressure by supplying volume to the plasma. When water intake is low, blood volume decreases, which can affect the blood supply of several major organs, including the liver and kidneys, just to name a couple. Since most hormones in our body are metabolized by the liver and excreted by the kidneys, a disturbance in the function of these organs can be directly leading to impaired metabolism and excretion of hormones. So, because the breakdown of hormones is impaired, then there's a higher concentration of them in the system. So this causes what's called hormonal feedback, and the signals of that to be inhibited so that new functional hormones are never released into circulation. This also causes a buildup of toxins in the system, which most glands are very sensitive to. Additionally, poor tissue hydration can affect the detoxification of tissues and further leads to glandular dysfunction and hormonal imbalances. That's all really exciting, huh? What's more, for women who are on their period, drink enough water throughout the day is especially important due to the loss of fluid. This makes dehydration easier. Adequate water intake can also help alleviate back pain and cramps, as well as help with energy slumps. And contrary to how it may seem, drinking more water on your period helps alleviate gas and bloating by flushing out the system. It's okay, buddy, that's my dog. Dehydration can also be the cause of period headaches because not having enough water actually causes the brain to pull away from the skull, which can lead to a throbbing headache and potentially trigger a migraine for those of you that are sensitive and get migraines. So you're probably wondering by now, how much water is enough? If you Google it, most answers range between 8 and 11 glasses per day. Many sources say most women need around 8 8-ounce glasses per day. So this is about 2 liters or half a gallon. However, many experts think water needs to be sipped throughout the day for adequate tissue hydration. So simply pounding a glass here and there of water isn't ideal. So now remember the houseplant scenario in that one. The idea of sipping water throughout the day falls more in line with Eastern medicine theory and is the reason many Eastern cultures sip teas and broth and soup, herbal water infusions throughout the day. My beliefs on the topic are more in line with the philosophy of drinking water throughout the day in smaller quantities. So the 8x8 rule I mentioned before is really just a one-size-fits-all rule. And as we know, women are not one-size-fits-all. I'm making things simple. So considering the human body is 60% water, what I tell women is to aim to drink about half of their body weight in ounces per day. For example, for someone who weighs about 130 pounds, that's 65 ounces. However, as discussed before, during exercise or menses, water intake needs to be increased. So how much water it's increased depends upon how much fluid a woman loses during their activities or menses, but I aim for about an extra 20 ounces. Another thing to factor in is caffeine. If you're a caffeine drinker, black tea, coffee, soda especially, can be really dehydrating. So drink an additional 20 ounces just because those beverages can be dehydrating. So let's add that scenario up. A woman who weighs 130 pounds, we'll say that's about 65 ounces of water that she needs, plus 20 ounces with menses or exercise and 20 ounces for coffee intake, which adds up to 105 ounces per day. So the equation looks like 65 plus 20 equals 105. So to make this easy, be sure to know how many ounces the drinkware you commonly use holds, and that will help you keep track of water consumption. So on a personal note, I wake up looking like a goddess. So much more bright-eyed when my water intake is up. My skin looks plump with good coloring in my cheeks. I've gotten to the point where I'm keen to certain signals from my body when I'm dehydrated, such as brain fog, a strange buzzing feeling that I get under my skin. So perhaps this article has sufficiently encouraged you to want to get your water intake up. But just remember, by the time you actually feel thirsty or your lips are dry or peeling, you're already dehydrated. Try to pay attention to little signals from your body like those and the way you feel as you slowly get your water intake up. You may find it helps alleviate some of the day-to-day symptoms you usually just push through, or maybe you don't relate to your body being thirsty.